Want to add a little mischief to your Halloween costume? Today we're making a Jester's hat that is fun, festive, and easier than it looks. Hi, I'm Christina, a digital pattern maker who loves creating wearable art that I can wear and share. I've put together the full pattern for you and you can find it in the description below. Find the size that will fit your head and get ready to start creating. Let's go ahead and jump on and start stitching together some magic. The fabric I chose for my Jester hat and crown was a little bit lightweight, specifically for my crown. So I decided to flatline it to a little bit heavier canvas fabric to help it stand up better and just be stiff. I'm currently flatlining my fashion fabric to that canvas. I am sewing all the way around with a long basting stitch to marry the two fabrics. I'm only doing that on one side of the crown pattern so that it is not too bulky on the inside. You can also use an iron-on interfacing to create the same effect. Next, we are going to sew the side seams of the crown. I'm going to sew the side seam that has the canvas flat line to it, as well as the side seam to the lining part of the crown. Once I have those side seams sewn, I'm going to move over to my ironing board and I'm going to press open those side seams. It is essential to press open side seams and do pressing as you go to make your garments look crisp and professional. Once you have the side seams pressed, we're going to line up the side seams of the crown pieces and then pin all of the points so that they don't move on each other. When working with points, I sometimes like to provide myself guidelines of where the points should begin and end at each point. This way I don't have to rely so much on the guidelines on my machine, but I can follow the stitch lines I have created on my pattern. When I cut out this pattern, I did not add them in, so I'm going to add them in now. We're going to then stitch around the crown, going up and down to each of these points. Whenever I am sewing points, I always recommend having a stitch at the very tip of the point to provide a little bit extra room for your fabric to turn in and to your point to become extra crisp. So this means you're going to sew up one side of the point, turn your fabric, and hand wheel one stitch to that very point, turn your fabric to go then down the other side of the point, and then you're going to repeat at any point, whether it's pointed out or in. It's just going to help you be able to flip your points a little bit better and make everything look a little bit more crisp. Now that the crown is sewn, we're going to clip and trim away the excess fabric. At every inward point, we're going to clip to release it so that it will flip easier, and every outward point, we're going to trim it super close to our stitch line up one side, across the top, and down. This way that will cut out all that extra bulk that's going to be in there and make it much easier to turn your points, as well as making each one of the points crisper once they're actually turned, because there's not that extra bulk in there. Once they are all clipped and trimmed, it is time to turn the crown right side out. I'm going to flip each point one at a time and use a point turner to crisp up each edge. Now, I want to make sure that I'm not pushing too hard at each one of these points, because the fabric that does not have the flat lining on it is more delicate and has the potential to be pushed through if you push too hard. So be a little bit more careful as you are pushing that point turner into those points. Once they are all turned right side out, it's over to the ironing board to press them flat and make them look amazing. Next, I'm going to baste the two layers of the crown together so that the two crown pieces are now acting as one piece. Now it's time to create the Jester hat. I'm going to get two sides of the same color, place them right sides together. I'm going to sew up the side seam, out to the point, turn, do a single stitch at the very point to give myself a little extra room for that point to turn, and then back down and across to where the center seam will meet. And then do the exact same thing on the opposite side with the opposite colors. Place them right sides together, sew up the side seam, out to the point, a single stitch across the point, and then down to the center seam. Now it's off to the ironing board to press open your seams. You want to press open as best you can all the way up to that point. If you can't quite get up that far, it's okay. You'll just want to press it again once you have flipped your pattern pieces right side out. This is also where you're going to want to clip in to the corner where it turns from the side seam going out to the point. That way you can get your seams to lay flat. We are also going to want to clip the point of the Jester hat. We want to get as much fabric out of that point as we can so that it will turn nicely. I also find when I'm turning a point that is far away, I like to crunch it all up, flip it as close as I can, and then while that fabric's still crunched up, use the point turner to get that point nice and crisp. Now that they're flipped right side out, I'm going to do one more press on both of them. Now it's time to sew that center seam. Flip one of your Jester hats back inside out and insert the one that is still right side out into the inside out Jester hat. And then we are going to sew from front to back on that seam. Once that seam is sewn, we're going to move back over to the ironing board and press it open. You are going to want to clip the corners to let the fabric relax and press nicely. I also did not make a lining with this Jester hat, and I wish I did. It would make the finishing and everything look much cleaner and more precise, and I can't get back in there and serge this easily, so I don't know what I'm going to do, but if you are making this, I would highly recommend doing the exact same steps for the hat to create a lining, then turn the lining inside out, put it inside of the right side out gesture hat, and baste the bottoms together. That way your hat is fully lined and there are no raw edges seen. Once you have your hat complete, it's time to marry the hat to the crown. Line up your side seams with the right side of the crown facing the inside or the lining side of the gesture hat. This way, when you do your flip out, all of your seams are contained between your gesture hat and your crown, and there's no extra bulk sitting between your hat and your forehead. Once you have those lined up, go ahead and stitch them together. Then we're going to go back to the ironing board. We're going to press that seam open. Then we're going to flip the crown to the outside and press again. This is where you can choose to do another stitch underneath the crown, holding all your seam allowance there if you would like, or mine was sitting just fine and I didn't feel like I needed to do that extra step. Once your gesture hat is done, it is time to try it on and have some fun. Ooh, I love it. And that's it. You now have a fun gesture hat that is as fun to wear as it was to sew. Be sure to grab that pattern if you have not done that yet. I absolutely love this, and I might need to put bells on the bottom of these points so that I can jingle jangle a little bit. But if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe so that you can see other fun ways to make digital patterns as well as some fun projects. I look forward to seeing you in some of my other videos. Keep stitching and keep playing with your fun gesture hat. Take care.